I think I, male 27, just completely destroyed my dad's career and possibly our entire family. And I don't know if I did the right thing or if I just made everything 1,000 times worse. So my parents separated about 3 years ago, but they never actually got divorced. My dad, Sean 58, has always been controlling. I guess that's the word. Like I remember growing up, he would literally check my mom's 56 car odometer when she went grocery shopping to make sure she wasn't going anywhere else. I mean, who does that? And he was always checking her phone, her emails, everything. I remember coming home from college one spring break and finding him scrolling through her email account while she was at work. When I asked what he was doing, he just said, making sure everything's okay. Like that was a totally normal thing to do. Anyway, they separated 3 years ago. My mom finally had enough, I guess. But my dad constantly refers to her as still my wife, which drives her crazy. I've heard him say it like 1,000,000 times in the last few years. Nancy is still my wife. I have a right to know where my wife is going. It's creepy AF, honestly. So about 18 months ago, my mom's sister Sarah got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. It was really bad from the beginning, and my mom moved in with Sarah to help take care of her through all the treatments and stuff. Sarah was married to Greg and they didn't have kids, so my mom basically became Sarah's full-time caregiver. This is where my dad completely lost his shit. He somehow got it in his head that my mom was sleeping with Greg. I know, it sounds completely insane. Like, my mom moved in to help her dying sister, and somehow that translated in my dad's mind to, she's fucking her brother-in-law while her sister is on chemo. I've tried to stay neutral in their arguments over the years. Okay, that's a lie. I've definitely taken my mom's side a lot because my dad is being ridiculous. But things got really scary about 6 months ago. I was helping my mom move some of her stuff from storage to Sarah's place, and I noticed this weird little black box thing stuck under her rear bumper. Turned out to be a freaking tracking device. My dad had been monitoring everywhere she went for who knows how long. When I confronted him about it, he just said, I have a right to know where she goes, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I should have realized then how dangerous this was getting, but I think I just thought of it as him being super possessive and controlling, not like actual criminal stalking behavior. I don't know. I guess I was in denial about how bad things were getting. Oh, and by the way, when I say I try to stay neutral, I really have tried. But then my dad would do something completely psycho and I'd end up yelling at him and defending my mom. So I guess I haven't really been neutral at all, whatever. So Sarah passed away last week after fighting for so long. It was awful. The funeral was held at this community center where she used to volunteer. My mom was absolutely devastated. And my dad? Well, he insisted on coming to the funeral, despite my mom begging him to stay away. He kept saying, I have every right to support my wife during her time of grief, and wouldn't listen when literally everyone told him to respect my mom's wishes. So the day of the funeral comes, and I noticed my dad arrive late with a bunch of people from his work. He's some big shot at an insurance company. My mom whispered to me that his company had donated a bunch of money to Sarah's cancer charity, which is why his colleagues were there. During the service, my dad stayed on the complete opposite side of the room from my mom, which I thought was a good sign. But then during the reception, God, I'm still shaking thinking about it. My mom was talking with Greg near this memorial display for Sarah with all these photos from her life. My dad walked right up to them and accused them of planning to hook up now that Sarah was gone. Greg tried to get my dad to quiet down since they were at a funeral, but my dad just got louder. He started yelling about how my mom was sleeping with her sister's husband while she was dying and claimed he had proof they were together. My mom just froze up completely in shock while everyone at the funeral turned to stare. I ran over as my mom started crying and my dad called her some really disgusting names. Greg tried to escort my dad out and my dad shoved him right there next to the casket. It was a complete shit show. The worst part, his boss Stan and like 5 of his colleagues saw the whole thing. They looked horrified. I helped get my mom to this little side room while some of my cousins blocked my dad from following. She was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. And that's when I made a decision that I'm still not sure about. See, for the past couple years, I've been keeping track of all the crazy shit my dad has been doing. Saving threatening texts he sends my mom, recording these insane voicemails, keeping a journal of incidents. I had everything on this USB drive. I originally made it thinking maybe someday my mom would want to get a real divorce, and this would help with the lawyer stuff. So while my mom was trying to pull herself together, I went out and found Stan, my dad's boss. He looked super uncomfortable after witnessing everything. I pulled him aside and gave him the USB drive. I told him that what he just saw wasn't a one-time thing, that my dad had been harassing and stalking my mom for years, and that the USB had proof. I don't know what came over me. I was so angry and hurt and embarrassed. My dad had just ruined my aunt's funeral and humiliated my grieving mother in front of everyone. It felt like someone needed to finally stop him before things got even worse. But now I'm freaking out about what I did. Did I go too far by bringing his workplace into this? I basically just handed his boss evidence that could get him fired. That's his whole career. But at the same time, he's getting more unhinged, and I'm genuinely worried about my mom's safety. I haven't told my mom what I did yet. I don't know how she'll react. Edit. Some people are asking why I didn't just go to the police. I honestly don't know. I guess I never thought of my dad's behavior as something that could be reported, like it was just a family problem, not a legal one. My mom did try to file a report once when she found out about the tracking device, but the cops basically said they couldn't do anything unless he actually threatened her directly. One officer literally said, being a possessive ex isn't illegal, which feels so wrong to me now. A few people have asked about previous incidents. There are honestly too many to list. One time he showed up at my mom's workplace and caused such a scene. Security had to escort him out. Another time he sent like 87 texts in a single night when she didn't answer his calls. And yes, he's shown up at Sarah and Greg's house unannounced multiple times before Sarah died. Now for the first update. So a lot has happened since my last post about my dad's meltdown at my Aunt Sarah's funeral, and somehow things have managed to get even worse than they already were. It's been about a week since I gave my dad's boss Stan that USB drive, and I think I may have started a huge mess in our family. So many of you asked what was actually on the USB drive I gave Stan. It's basically this collection of evidence I've been gathering for like 2 years now. I have screenshots of literally hundreds of threatening texts my dad sent my mom, recordings of these creepy voicemails where he makes threats like, I know where you go every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and stuff like that. There's emails where he literally describes watching my mom's house, and copies of police reports she tried to file in 3 different places she's lived or worked since they separated. Oh, and the reason I started collecting all this evidence is kind of random. I ran into my childhood friend Mike at Kroger like 2 years ago, and he's a cop now. I was telling him about some of the weird stuff my dad was doing, and he was like, dude, your mom needs to document everything. So I just started keeping track of it all. I guess I thought maybe someday my mom would want to get a real divorce and need it for court or something. Anyway, when I got home from the funeral with my mom, I finally told her what I did, and she completely freaked out, like full-on panic attack. She was furious with me. She kept saying I had no idea what he'd do when he finds out. I totally misunderstood her reaction at first. I thought she was mad at me for making things worse, but now I realize she was just terrified of how my dad would retaliate when he inevitably found out, which honestly makes this whole situation even scarier. Like, my mom's first reaction wasn't relief that someone might finally do something about his behavior. It was fear about what he would do next. That's how scared of him she is. I know I said in my last post that I try to stay neutral in their marriage problems, but that's obviously complete BS. I mean, I've been collecting evidence against my dad for years. I guess what I meant was I tried not to get directly involved in their arguments. I don't know. It's complicated. Part of me has always felt like it wasn't my place to step in, but another part knew this was way beyond normal divorce stuff. So the day after the funeral, my dad called me screaming. Apparently, Stan had called him in for an emergency meeting and told him they were opening an internal investigation. My dad immediately knew I was the one who gave Stan the USB because he saw me talking to Stan at the funeral. The investigation at his company moved crazy fast. Like within 3 days, they had discovered that my dad had been using the company's databases to run unauthorized background checks on Greg, my uncle, and get this, also on the male barista at my mom's favorite coffee shop and her dentist. What the frick? They also found folders on his work laptop with surveillance photos of my mom outside her workplace and Sarah's home, like he was literally stalking her on company time using company resources. He got suspended immediately pending their final decision, but everyone knows he's definitely getting fired. I mean, there's no way they can keep him after finding all that, right? And oh my freaking God, the family conflict this has caused. Everyone is taking sides. My dad's side of the family is mostly defending him, saying I betrayed my own father and destroyed his life over a family disagreement. My mom's side is mostly supportive, but even some of them think I went too far by involving his workplace. My dad's sister Claire called me 2 days after the funeral. She was upset and asked how I could try to destroy my father's career. I tried to explain that his behavior at the funeral wasn't a one-time thing. She tried to excuse it as grief affecting people differently and suggested my dad was going through a lot. When I mentioned the tracking device he put on my mom's car, she basically suggested my mom must have given him reasons not to trust her. I told her about the police reports and restraining order my mom had filed, and Claire claimed she had no idea about any of that. She suggested I should be supporting my dad during this difficult time, and admitted she hadn't called my mom since the funeral. She said there are two sides to every story, and I told her I was disappointed in her response and hung up. Thinking back on that conversation now, I realize Claire's response shouldn't have surprised me. The family has always excused my dad's behavior. I remember hearing stories about how when my parents were dating in college, my dad would show up unannounced at my mom's dorm all the time. Everyone thought it was romantic back then, but now it's like, those were some serious red flags no one recognized. But here's where things get even worse. Greg, my late aunt's husband, called me yesterday and told me that my dad had confronted him multiple times over the past year. Once he followed Greg to his workplace, and another time he threatened him in a grocery store parking lot. Greg said he never told my mom about these incidents because he didn't want to add to her stress while she was taking care of Sarah. I had no idea it had gone that far. And then, the police contacted me after my dad's company turned over the evidence they found during their investigation. The detectives told me they discovered my dad's harassment went beyond just my mom. He had been sending anonymous messages to Sarah before she died, accusing her of poisoning my mom against him. I can't even process that. He was harassing my dying aunt. Who does that? It gets worse. 2 women from my dad's past somehow heard about what happened and reached out to me. They both described similar controlling behavior when they dated my dad decades ago. One of them said she had to move to a different state to get away from him after they broke up in college. This has apparently been his pattern for his entire adult life, and no one ever did anything about it. I'm really worried about my dad's mental state right now. He's been sending me these messages that swing between threatening, "You'll regret doing this to your own father," and desperate pleading, "Please, son, you're destroying this family. I need your help." I've blocked his number, but he keeps using different phones to contact me. I feel guilty sometimes about potentially ruining his career. He's worked at that company for like 25 years. But then I remember all the stuff he's done and how scared my mom was when I told her what I did, and I know I had to do something. The stalking was so much more extensive than even I realized. My mom is staying with me for now. We're looking into getting a more comprehensive restraining order since the previous one clearly didn't stop him. Edit. A lot of people are asking if I regret giving the USB to Stan. Honestly, no. I wish it hadn't come to this, but something had to happen to make my dad stop. The fact that he was stalking not just my mom, but also Greg and even Sarah before she died just confirms for me that this was way beyond normal divorce bitterness. Edit 2. Some people have asked about my mom's current state. She's doing okay, I guess. She's still grieving Sarah while dealing with all of this stuff with my dad. She jumps every time her phone rings or there's a knock at the door. She started seeing a therapist who specializes in domestic abuse, which is what this is, even though it took me way too long to recognize it. For those wondering about potential legal consequences for my dad, the police said they're coordinating with the other jurisdictions where my mom filed reports. Apparently, when you combine all the evidence from different places, it meets the threshold for criminal stalking charges. The detective said they're taking it very seriously now, especially after seeing what his company found on his work devices. Someone asked about my grandfather, Dad's dad. Now that I think about it, my grandma, who passed away about 10 years ago, used to have to check in with Grandpa whenever she went anywhere. I remember as a kid thinking it was weird that she had to call him just to tell him she was going to the grocery store. I wonder if this is some kind of pattern in our family that no one ever addressed. That's a disturbing thought. Now for the second update. Okay, so I don't even know where to begin. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my last 2 posts. Reading your comments made me feel less crazy about this whole situation and honestly helped me stay somewhat sane through all of this. It's been about 3 weeks since my last update, and holy shit, things have escalated in ways I never imagined possible. I'm exhausted and haven't really slept properly in, weeks. My brain feels like it's constantly in fight or flight mode. So remember how I mentioned my dad got suspended from his job after Stan, his boss, saw the evidence on that USB drive? Well, the company finished their internal investigation and officially fired him last week. Completely terminated. They found out he'd been using the company's resources to basically run a full surveillance operation on my mom. I'm talking about using their subscription to some background check service to investigate not just Greg, my uncle, but also, and I swear I'm not making this up, the male barista at my mom's favorite coffee shop and her dentist. What the actual fuck? Who does that? The company even issued a formal apology to my mom. Stan personally called her and said they were deeply disturbed by what they found on my dad's work devices. They offered her some support services, including security consultation and therapy resources. At first, I thought it was just them covering their asses legally, which, yeah, probably part of it, but Stan has actually been really helpful. He's gone way beyond what I would expect from some corporate executive. I found out later from my mom that Stan's sister went through something similar with her ex-husband years ago, which explains why he took this so seriously. Wish he would have mentioned that before. But whatever, Stan even helped my mom get a more comprehensive restraining order by providing a sworn statement about my dad's behavior at the funeral and all the evidence they found during their investigation. The new restraining order includes me too, which becomes important later in this story. I never wanted to destroy my father's life. I really didn't. I just wanted him to stop. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't satisfied seeing him finally face actual consequences after years of this shit. Is that terrible? I don't know. I'm still sorting through all these complicated feelings. The legal stuff has gotten really serious really fast. There are literally 3 separate police departments now collaborating on this stalking investigation, spanning multiple jurisdictions, where my mom lived, where she works, and where my Aunt Sarah and Greg live. Apparently, when you combine all the evidence from different places, it paints this horrifying picture that prosecutors are taking super seriously. The detectives told us they found these elaborate spreadsheets on my dad's devices tracking my mom's movements, expenses, and social interactions dating back 5 years. 5 years. That means he was doing this shit for 2 years before they even separated. He had itemized lists of everyone she talked to, places she went, what she bought. It's so disturbing, I can't even process it properly. And the family drama, oh my freaking god. Everyone's taking sides. My dad's brother called me last week to tell me I'm dead to him for betraying family. But then my dad's youngest sister, Aunt Melissa, called my mom crying and apologizing for not believing her sooner. She said she'd seen signs of my dad's controlling behavior for years, but always made excuses for him. Oh, and I found out something that honestly makes so much sense now, but is also completely disturbing. Apparently, my grandfather, Dad's dad, was exactly the same way with my grandmother. Exactly. My Aunt Melissa told me how my grandma had to check in constantly and wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. Growing up, I thought it was just my grandpa being old-fashioned or whatever, but now I realize it was the same controlling pattern, and everyone just accepted it. No one ever called it out as wrong or abusive, which explains so much about why my dad thought his behavior was normal. My mom is finally filing for divorce, for real this time, and she's temporarily moved in with me for safety. She's seeing a therapist who specializes in domestic abuse, which is what this is, even though it took me way too long to recognize it. She's slowly reconnecting with friends that my dad had systematically isolated her from during their 30-year marriage. It's like watching someone slowly wake up from a really long nightmare. But here's where things got really scary and intense. Last Thursday, my dad showed up at my workplace. I was heading out for lunch and he was just there, waiting near the entrance. He looked absolutely terrible, unshaven, like he hadn't slept in days, wearing wrinkled clothes. I immediately reminded him about the restraining order that now includes me. He completely ignored that and started demanding to know why I betrayed him. I noticed one of our security guards watching us, and I tried to subtly signal that I needed help. My dad pulled out these printed emails from my mom to Greg that he claimed proved they were having an affair. I glanced at them, and they were literally just normal messages about Sarah's care and medical appointments. Like, completely innocent stuff that only looks suspicious if you're looking for something to be suspicious about. His voice kept getting louder as he accused me of conspiring with my mom against him. Two of my colleagues walked out of the building and were just standing there watching this whole scene unfold. Super embarrassing. Dad kept saying he lost everything because of lies and that I needed to fix it. The security guard finally walked over and asked if everything was okay. That's when my dad grabbed my arm really hard. I remember very clearly saying, "You need to leave now. You're violating the restraining order." But he wouldn't let go and just kept saying, "Not until you tell the truth." The security guard called the police while trying to get my dad to calm down. When my dad realized the police were being called, he finally let go of my arm. But he didn't leave. He just stood in the parking lot ranting until the police showed up like 5 minutes later and arrested him right there. I had to give a statement to the police. It was honestly one of the worst moments of my life, watching my own father get handcuffed and put in a police car while I explained to officers that he had violated a restraining order. But he gave me no choice. This incident ended up being the tipping point for the criminal case. The district attorney's office is now pursuing felony stalking charges, and the other counties are filing charges too. The detectives told us he could potentially face significant jail time, especially since he's shown he won't respect legal boundaries like restraining orders. My dad has been ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation while awaiting trial. He's prohibited from contacting my mom, me, Greg, or any of my mom's relatives. Some of his siblings have finally realized how serious this is, and a couple have reached out to apologize to me and my mom for not believing us sooner. This whole process has been exhausting and traumatic. My mom is doing better, but she still jumps at unexpected sounds and checks for tracking devices on her car out of habit. I catch her looking over her shoulder constantly when we're in public. It's going to take a long time for her to feel safe again. I don't regret exposing my dad's behavior, but I'm still processing the complicated grief of basically losing my relationship with him while trying to support my mom through her recovery from years of abuse and the recent loss of her sister. It's a lot to deal with. One unexpected thing that's happened is that other people who've experienced stalking have reached out to thank me for sharing my story. It's made me realize how common this kind of situation is and how rarely it results in any kind of justice for the victims. So I guess if anything good came from this nightmare, maybe it's that.